All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. We're talking about the Detroit Lions in today's video because things are getting interesting, all right? The Lions are still a top 5 team in the NFL. They're 6-3, they're second in scoring, they're second in touchdowns, they're third in yards per play, they're sixth in rushing. They just put up 44 against the Commanders. They had more than 500 yards of total offense, over 200 on the ground. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't allow a single sack. And when we sat here behind the microphone on Sunday during our rapid reaction, I was like, it looked like, and I think they also said it in the broadcast, looked like Dan Campbell was calling all the plays. You know, Dan Campbell had the glasses out for the first time this season. He was talking, he was motioning, he was doing what a head coach does and what a play caller does. They would pan up to John Morton in the booth. He wouldn't say a single word. He would make like one button for whatever personnel he wanted, and it's just really... it was interesting, all right? And so we haven't made a video on this Lions team since, and then obviously it ends up coming out. Dan Campbell did call the game. He wanted to change the rhythm. He wanted to change things up. He decided like the day after the Vikings loss, and now the Lions are in a weird position because I've always been a fan of John Morton because I'm a fan of Dan Campbell, and I'm a fan of Dan Campbell because I think good coaches hire good coaches. Morton's had experience in the NFL in general, especially with some really good coaches like, Sean Payton. I mean, there's a bunch of them. But the Lions looked like the Lions for really one of the first times this season on Sunday. You know, you can go to week 2 against Chicago. They looked great. That was a really big win for the Detroit Lions in week 2. Ben Johnson comes back to Detroit. Look at the Bears now. They're also 6-3. That was a good win. Week 3 against the Baltimore Ravens, on the road against Lamar Jackson, primetime football game. That was a really good win. But as an outsider, as a Packers fan, I noticed this in week 1 against the Packers. And then I also noticed this, unfortunately, 2 weeks ago against the Vikings. There was way too many plays where it would be like, let's say it's like 3rd and 4. And I'm looking at J-Mo go deep. I'm watching pretty much not actually 4 verticals. I'm trying to think of like a Madden play call that everyone would know. It's not like the Lions were actually running 4 vert on like a 3rd and 3. But when you watched the film from the Vikings game, and especially from week 1 against the Packers, like, it was actually frustrating. And we did a couple of film studies on this channel, or actually maybe it was on our Lions channel. I was like, I don't really know what the play here is, and they got lucky a couple of times with like Laporta picking up a first down. So the Lions looked like the Lions on Sunday against Washington, and we're going to get into some advanced stuff here in this video. So welcome back, or welcome to the channel. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. We post daily NFL content, a couple of Lions videos every single week. Love and appreciate you guys as always. If you wouldn't mind trying to get this video to 250 likes, we're reaching closer and closer to 90K, which is just which is just crazy, so thank you. All right, the Lions on Sunday scored on every drive, every single drive. They left, Jack Fox, the punter, without any work. It was maybe the best offensive performance since week 2, where they put up 52 against the Chicago Bears. And now we know Dan Campbell took on a very big role. And the Lions fan base, you guys were kind of critical in general, and it appears rightfully so, about just the lack of efficiency. Like, you have a top 5 offense, but when you watch it with your eyes, it doesn't look like a top 5 offense, right? Like, why, losing to Minnesota, losing to Kansas City by 13, some of these games, it just didn't feel like a top 5 offense. So when you look at some of the advanced efficiency metrics, for example, entering Sunday's game, the Lions, they were 25th in 3rd down conversions, 16th in explosive plays, and 27th in offensive success rate, rushing the ball. So it's like, you had a top 10 offense running, but most efficiency metrics are telling you not good. So Goff goes 25 of 33 for 320, 3 touchdowns. Doesn't get sacked for the first time in 5 games. Over the previous 4 games, Jared Goff had been sacked 14 times, including 5 times 2 weeks ago to the Vikings. Jahmyr Gibbs goes for 170 and 3 touchdowns. Jamison Williams has a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown has a touchdown. And so Colton Pouncey, the Detroit Lions beat writer for The Athletic, he pointed out a bunch of differences, and it actually kind of blew me away. And so we're going to go through a couple of these from Colton's article. Go check that out on The Athletic. I love, he's one of my favorite beat writers for the NFL. But anyways, the Lions ranked second among teams in play action rate in week 10 at 26.5, all right? They entered the week ranked 18th. So they went from 18th in play action rate to second in just one game, or at least from the week basis. And, here's the thing. I'm trying to simplify this because I know advanced analytics are they're kind of frustrating when we start getting into like DVOA and we start getting into EPA per pass and EPA per rush. It gets a little confusing. So let me phrase it this way. The Lions were second amongst all teams in play action rate this past week, right? We know they entered ranked 18th. Now, their rate number was 26.5. Before that game, it was 15% play action rate. When the Lions this season have gone over 20%, they're 3-0 and they're averaging 44.3 points per game. So you can also look at only 35% of Detroit's plays were out of shotgun. That was the second lowest of the season. So Jared Goff's under center more, and they're getting that play action going. Obviously having no sacks in a football game is going to help you out. The offense also had no penalties. That's only the sixth time in Dan Campbell era that the Lions offense, the Lions offense has had no penalties in a game. So, that's like extremely impressive. And, Jared Goff, his pressure rate was not very high. It was the second lowest of the season. And like I said, they didn't sack him. So those two things certainly help. Even in the run game, only 9% of Detroit's running attempts went for 0 or negative yards, which does sound like a lot, but that was actually the second lowest mark on the season. And they converted 50% of their third down attempts, which was tied for their third highest this season. So basically what all those metrics tell you, whether it's the penalties, whether it's the sacks, whether it's the advanced rushing, the advanced passing, play calling, play action rate, whatever it is, it just reinforces what we started this video saying. The Lions looked like the Lions. And it's unfortunate because that should be a good thing. All right, the 6-3 Detroit Lions just looked like the Detroit Lions. But John Morton is still the offensive coordinator. What's interesting, Dan Campbell called the plays for the Lions in 2021. Ben Johnson, comes in 2022. Dan Campbell actually wanted to still call plays when Ben Johnson got here for that season, but he handed it over to Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. So the reason this sucks is because I don't really want Dan Campbell calling all the plays. I mean, I do if it's going to result in all these wins, but you would like your offensive coordinator to be calling these plays. You'd like your offensive coordinator to be better. So I don't know. I'm curious where my Lions fans watching this video stand because, like I said, okay, awesome. Dan Campbell and the Lions just looked awesome, but what does that mean moving forward? So Campbell will be calling plays against Philadelphia. It is a huge game, biggest game of the season, on the road Sunday night. It's going to be cold. Really big game. Don't need to tell you guys. So thank you for watching. Hit that like button. Hit that sub button. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know if you've got any panic going on as far as play calling goes. Just let me know your thoughts on this Lions offense with John Morton and Dan Campbell. Peace.